Deep within, we all have the river of infinite possibilities. All we have to do is connect. A quote by Kaushiki Chakrabarti, an acclaimed Indian classical vocalist who's celebrated for her powerful, soulful voice and technical brilliance. A star in her own right and the daughter of the maestro Ajay Chakraborty, she carries forward a rich musical legacy with deep artistry and contemporary flair. Welcome to the Impressive Empress podcast, where we dive deep into the empowering journeys of Indian women leaders, visionaries, and change makers. I'm your host, Malati, and today's episode is one you don't want to miss. We are joined by Dr. Sweta Adatia, a neurologist, healer, and a thought leader who has made incredible strides in blending science with spirituality and compassion. Known for her powerful work across 5 different continents, Shweta shares how embracing vulnerability, self reflection, and feminine strength has helped shape her life and leadership. In this conversation, we'll explore her journey from a brilliant young scholar to a world renowned doctor, as well as her path towards understanding the true essence of leadership and empowerment. If you have ever wondered, as a woman, how to embrace your inner power and make a meaningful impact, this episode is filled with wisdom you won't want to miss. So let's dive in and discover how Dr. Sweta Adatia continues to lead with creativity, meaning, and nobility. Namaskaram, Dr. Sweta Adatia. A very warm welcome to the Impressive Empress podcast, where we are talking to women leaders, Indian women leaders from various walks of life. And we are talking to them about their inner journey, their personal growth journey. So more women and girls can learn through our shared experiences. And with that purpose in mind, I welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much for having me on the Impressive Empress podcast. I really like the name, it's an impressive Empress. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for putting this up. I think we all need inspirations and we learn from each other. So this is a great way of connecting like minds and connecting to people where you can also inspire and then people can also be inspiring. Both ways it works together. So thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. So the idea for the podcast itself, like you very rightly put, is to learn through experiences, and we definitely need a lot of inspirational stories. The podcast itself started with my own journey of finding inspirational leaders, and I'm glad to be able to share the space with many, many more people. So, Shweta, let us start from the very beginning, your early years where you were at the university and you earned 13 gold medals. 13. I think every subject you touched, I think you got a gold medal. I mean, that there must be a deep sense of purpose that kind of fuels you. What was it that stirred you back then? Beyond just the desire to become a doctor and become a successful doctor, was there an unspoken dream to contribute to the world in a meaningful way?
What
How
a
did that?
beautiful question that you asked, and every time when somebody asks this question, the brain has a very interesting thing of going back to the childhood days and then, reliving those experiences. So let me start with the first of all, that being a doctor was never one of my goals or never one of my dreams. There are two kinds of marriages in India. There's something called the love marriage and the arranged marriage. There are two kinds of careers: love career and arranged career. Mine was 100% an arranged career. My both parents were into medical faculties. My dad was a doctor and an anesthetist. Mom was a pharmacist, and I was a single child. So all I saw was only medicine, medicine in the family. And unfortunately, I got a lot of marks. Now, 95% marks. I was living in Gujarat in a small town. What to do next? So my parents said, right there is the medical school. Right there is the medical school. Go and try it. So I told them, I gave them a condition that I'll go and try, but if I don't like, I will step out. So with that condition, I go in, and then 5 years of MBBS, 1 year of internship, 1 year of pre-medicine, 3 years of medicine, 1 year of pre-neurology, 3 years of neurology, and 2 years in stroke. It's like the marriage, right? You start living with something, you start loving it. So for me, it was arranged come love. I think when a couple of incidences in the medical college changed or stirred the way I look at world. My very first class, when I was studying embryology, so the professor was teaching, there was a beautiful class, everything was going on, and somehow he was showing that how an ovum and a sperm meets and zygote happens and then the baby forms. And I was like, how is this freaking possible, such a beautiful big nice baby coming out from just two cells? There has to be some grand mechanism behind it. It cannot be just so simple. So that embryology class is still sort of resonating in my mind. It's like a vivid picture, it's like so clear to me. And then I came back home and I started to question my parents. No, no, tell me what is behind all this. What is the reason why a person is here? Who is running the human show? What is going
Mm.
beyond the humanness of human beings? So they got pretty confused and said that what kind of question is that? Go and read your embryology, go and read your pathology. I wasn't convinced, so my quest kept on increasing. Every day I would just breakfast, lunch, dinner, this was the same conversation which would happen. I said, no, I'm not interested in anatomy of the person. I'm interested in behind the scenes. And then my mom got frustrated, said that this bacha is asking the same question over and over and over and over again. Let's give her something, somewhere where she can go and ask this question. So serendipitously, she was watching a TV program, and Swamini Vimlananda, she's one of the spiritual teachers. She was there. She was talking. The discourse was happening. So she says, "Go and ask this person." I said, "Wow, that sounds very interesting. I'll go and ask. But where do I find her?" She says, "That's your problem." So I had to literally, and those times we didn't have Google. To the surprise, you will be also shocked. I got my very first laptop and my very first email when I was 25 years old. Now look at the
Wow.
generation, so it's just a massive, shift what has happened. So finally, I could find her in the newspaper, good old days newspaper. I suddenly saw after a few days the big, nice advertisement saying she's going to be talking at this particular hall. So I just go to her, and that's when my second part of the inquiry journey or sort of the why journey started. And obviously,
How old were you? Sorry to
I
interrupt. How
was
old were you?
17 years old then. I was 17.
17. Okay,
So that's
okay.
that's been a very interesting part of when I now look back at those gold medals, because that was just sort of. And then she kept on saying that you have to perform best, you have to perform best. I used to travel with her. I have traveled roughly about 30
Mm.
countries. I had zero knowledge of what even spirituality is. She would ask me to meditate, and I would say in the early morning I'm happy horizontally meditating. I don't like to sit at all. And then this is how, as a kid, you're a teenager, very brash, you've got everything, you're a privileged person. So that is how my story started. And then obviously when I started to learn about the brain, I think, brain is such a captivating thing. Again, it was a very serendipitous entry into neurology also for me. So I used to always think that I would go into cardiology. So I would become a heart
Mm.
specialist. And then I got this one amazing roommate, and she would continuously breakfast, lunch, dinner talk about neurology because that was her passion. And she wouldn't leave me because we would be in the hostel room and she would just keep talking about it. And then I would say, but yeah, I'm not interested, and but she wouldn't let me go until I complete the entire lesson. And then fortunately I cleared the exam. I just tagged along with her because I wanted to accompany her. I cleared the neurology exam, and that's how I landed up in neurology. But I think serendipitously that was the best thing, what divine plan I would say, that God could have created. Because in neurology, that is when I think the deep inquiry of how the brain functions and what is happening in the brain, and all the answers which I was seeking as a kid. Why should you meditate? Why should you chant? Why should you do a certain task? Why should you remain positive? What is the emotional well being all about? All those started to get answered. So that's the journey.
Beautiful. I have also been a big fan of Swamini Vimalananda. I listened to her lectures,
Yeah, she's amazing.
and I started following you when you mentioned that in one of your podcasts.
Oh, wonderful.
So it's been a year. I've been listening to a lot of what you say. So much of profound information, especially about the brain, and success.
Hmm.
Success in various aspects of life. You present it in such a way that you break it down to smaller, sizable, digestible chunks. That's
Yes.
what I really love about it. It shows a deep compassion to serve the society or the humanity, I would say. But you didn't just stop with brain studies. I think you went on to also becoming a healer. You acquired so many certifications or qualifications to also become a healer, thereby connecting the brain and the mind. It's so amazing. So you've mentioned somewhere that being a neurologist is science, but being a healer is a journey. So could you share a story or an experience where you felt this truth deeply? And when did you realize that healing isn't just about the brain, but also about the heart and the soul, which is so unique to Sanatana Dharma?
Thank you so much for asking that question. Again, that gets back to the story. So I was, of course, very successful as a neurologist. Things were going fine. I also was working with United Nations, the wing of UNITAR. I've lived in African countries. My boss used to be in Geneva, US. So it was a multicultural, wonderful work that was going on. Even back in India, I had my foundation. Things were going wonderfully well. And I also got the opportunity to do my MBA from Cambridge University with a scholarship. I was one of the women scholars which was offered the scholarship. So it was all going great until the time when this one event again stirred the entire thing upside down. So I had a very dear friend in my childhood. We literally grew up together. She was our neighbor, and we were very close. She went into marketing. I went into medicine. That's where we separated our ways professionally. But then we were very close, very thick friends. 25 years of long friendship, and very, very close, almost like a sister. And some very flimsy things happened, very, very absolutely what you can say, tiny, menial stuff happened. And then one fine day we separate ways. And we separated out on a not so, happy note. And I wasn't happy about it. There was something bothering me, deep emotional trauma and pain. I could not come out of it. Every day I would ruminate the same things, and then, keep asking the question that she was a part of my life, such an important part of my life. How could she do this, or how could I do this? And this won't stop. And this emotional pain was so deep that, although seemingly I had all the so-called neurology knowledge, that was of no use, because I wasn't able to actually convince myself as to what is happening and heal from this emotional trauma or heal from the emotional pain. Now, that was when my healing journey for self started. So somebody said, go ahead and check out your chakras, go ahead and do essential oils, go ahead and do your past life, possibly the reason lies in past life. And I was in so much pain that I was ready to do everything. And thankfully, I would again thank the divine powers for this, because of that journey, I got exposed to this entire world of healing. So I completed pranic
Mm,
healing, and everything was just to get my pain out. And then one of the events, I was there in a conference setting in US. They were studying breakups. I just literally I was there in one of the universities, and I breaked open and I said, oh wow, they're studying breakups. And when we say breakups, it's always the connotation of romance, right? But then this
mm,
is also a deep breakup, or a parent child is
yeah.
also a deep breakup, an employer employee. So all these are shocks to the brain. So I asked the professor, I said, you are doing a functional MRI. I would like to pay for my functional MRI, and I want to do it because I want to really see what is happening in my brain. And he was happy to do that. I did my functional MRI, and there was one finding. So functional MRI is like a huge, big scanner. You go in, different areas light up to see what is going on in the brain. And from that, you understand what is the functional capacities of the brain, what is happening in various areas of the brain. So when I underwent the MRI, there was one area in the brain which got lit up, and it was like a strong lighting up. When that lights up, which means you have to address that something is going on there. The professor calls me and said, doc, you are a neurologist, you can read your scan, so what do you see? I said, oh my God, there's one area, it's called ventral tegmental area, VTA in short, we call it, that's lighting up. And generally, we see the VTA in people with heroin addiction, with cocaine.
Mm,
Any addiction of the kinds will lead to this VTA. So I was like, oh, that connects the dots to me now. My connection to her had become to such an extent that it was more of an addiction to, or the attachment. It was not so called what
mm,
we keep talking about, love and care and all that, but it was deeply hurting my brain. So when I looked at that image, that became like a feedback to me. I said, I will fix this. Come what may, whatever it takes, I am going to come with the next scan when this won't be there. And then the professor, we were just chatting and said, do you have a lab? I said, yes, I have a lab, but I don't do anything related to scanning the brain for changes, for applying something where you can change. So he says, why don't you try with your brain? And that was the start of the Limitless Brain Lab. So I said, yes, I'm going to fix this. I come back, I do my QEG, quantitative electroencephalogram. I start to learn about it. And this was about 8, 9, 10 years back. So I came back to UAE. I was already based in UAE. I was in one of the institutes where I was a medical director. I said, this is the best time, when I start to study my own brain. So I made all the arrangements. I bought all the equipments just so that I could longitudinally see what is happening to my brain. And in that is all that I had to do. And then, when you're changing your brain patterns, you quickly start to understand that there's much more beyond the brain. What about your mind? Mind is, nobody knows really where the mind is, right? If I have a little pain in the toe, my mind would be there. If I had to come to Germany with you as a vacation, my mind would already be in Germany. So nobody really knows the function. We know the functioning of the mind, but we don't really know the anatomy. We don't really know the geographical location. So that was even an interesting task. So I could now get back to all the spiritual learnings that was there, and then the neuroscience sort of combined, and serendipitously again this bridging science and spirituality was born. So one of the pillars of the lab became that we will start to study the things as to impact of what is happening, because I had to relearn meditation, and I now wondered, oh gosh, all those days when I was traveling with her, I didn't learn. And now, I'm forced to learn and I have to restart literally. So I had to restart and learn the meditation. And then, I got curious. I'm not able to reach anywhere. I should get more inspiration, as what you mentioned, that this podcast was the birth of this podcast was seeking that inspiration, and putting the women in the forefronts of the life where they have achieved something. So for me, it became okay, let me just get some leaders, let me get some people who have done meditation, people who have chanted, people who have done something, and what has happened to their brain. So then I started to create something called the Limitless Brain Library. And in the library, I got some fantastic people, some leaders, top leaders, athletes. I still remember one of the parachute jumping person. He has done 28,000 jumps and zero accident. And he's one of the 0.01% in the world. And, in my conversation with him, he said, Doc, I go there. Even before my parachute is open, I'm in the flow state. As though, I can achieve everything. I'm just here.
Mm,
Where the
mm,
time ends. So I said, wow, going up there and getting a flow state, what is happening behind the scenes? So every single person, when I started to chat with them, there were some key elements what they were doing in their lifestyle. So then I thought, what are my habits? Let me do a little audit of my routines, my rituals. Am I doing all the right rituals which is serving my brain? That's when again, the further analysis and inquiry of whatever Limitless Brain Lab is doing right now comes out, that what should be done to get such a brain? What are the regular practices? How is a certain practice helpful? For me, there was only one practice which I would say that helped me a lot. So at a point in time, when you are with the mind is unhappy, you are unhappy. When the mind is happy, you are happy. So you sort of go in the seesaw of the mind. So all I had to
mm,
do was step out, watch my
mhm,
mind, become a witness to whatever is happening, good, bad, it really does not matter, so that I could be out of the pain. That was a very simple, fundamental what I wanted to do. And one breathing technique, so I tested a couple of them, but that one technique again stayed in my brain, because when we did a pre and a post scan, the changes were just so magnificent. And this was the very first time. Look, we do read a lot of papers, there's a ton of papers in this space, but until it applies to me as a person, until it is an experiential thing, it's not an urgency to go ahead and read a paper of what Brahmari, a particular humming bee pranayam is doing to you. You never would do that. So when this brain scan pre and post, when I saw it, I'm like, wow, this is just mind blowing. In a single Brahmari, in a single humming bee, if I am able to modulate my brain waves and get it from a simple beta, like a functioning high frequency wave, you are listening, I'm talking, there's a beta which is going on, it's a fast frequency, from a beta to a gamma. Gamma is like a super fast frequency, 50 to 100 hertz. When gamma happens, your powers of the brain amplify, your executive function, emotional regulation, the way you approach the world
mhm,
changes, your processing speed improves. So when I looked at beta to a gamma shift, I was like, great, I am going to pursue everything it takes to make my brain exactly the way it should be. And that's why I often I say that I'm a brain plumber. And I used to joke and I say that. And then I said, now I also became a brain tailor because I wanted to remove the alpha from here, remove the beta, make the gamma, and it was all on me. So that is how my journey with the lab also started. And that's how we started to get a lot of people involved with the lab. And then when we started to do all these experiments, it became clear that it's not just it's helping me, it can help the world. And that's when we started out the journey to talk to so many people. At Dr. Sweta.Adatia, we have over 5 million views now, 21 million impressions. And the entire vision or mission is to heal the world, to heal the pain. And then what better way in which you can get health, wealth, and happiness? So that's how the journey started.
It is so amazing. There's a saying that curiosity kills the cat, but here you are. I think you have, with your curiosity, with your the burning desire to find answers, I
Mhm.
think has kept you motivated to find and therefore start the Limitless Brain Lab. And I'm so grateful for all the right kind of guidance that you received, spiritual and otherwise. And otherwise, some questions just don't get answered, and we stop seeking beyond a point if you don't know where to go. So it's
Absolutely. So I've learned, I've learned three words, which I call it as a spa. That's been the spa of my life. It's surrender, it's prayer, and it's acceptance. So accept what
wow.
is happening to you, accept whatever is not happening to you, and just be grateful. So the spa has actually kept me happy and healthy, both ways.
Wow. Another thing I really love about whatever you share, these lovely acronyms. I
Yeah.
use them too in my speeches, and these are capsule information. So it's easy to stick to the brain. But from whatever you have said, Shweta, I see that it's very easy to get into the flow state once you have mentioned somewhere you romance with the brain.
Yes.
So what is this romancing with the brain? I found that very interesting, and I want to hear from you what it really means and how can it help a person where to get into the state where they can achieve peak performance.
Right. See, even let's say simply I go and buy a Bose, let's say speaker, and before hooking it up, there's a little manual which comes in. And if there's no manual nowadays, you just go on digital, find out how is this going to work and let me go see, and then you plug it in. And in case you didn't do that and there was a change, let's say in the voltage fluctuations, boom, you'll just blow it away. Now, this is such a fantastic, amazing instrument that God has given us. Now, if we had the manual, and if we were able to get the manual in the simplest of the forms, I feel that we would not blow it off. We are blowing it off by having attention deficit, depression, anxiety, sleep issues, and we are losing the power of what it entails. So, my romance is really with the power that it has. The 100 billion neurons, which is like a vast galaxy, trillions of synapses. In fact, if you take a small little area of the brain and if you just combine the 10 neurons, which is connecting to another 10 by means of the synapses, the potential combination itself can become 10 trillion. So the
Wow.
immense amount of possibilities which is lying in those little neuronal spaces ahead of a simple pin can house a few million neurons. So, it's just when I started to read about all of this, the memory capacity at 2.5 petabyte. So 1 petabyte is a million gigabyte. And I'm like, wow, what are we doing to it? And then we say, I forgot what I had dinner last Saturday, or I forgot that this is happening. So, how is this possible? Which means somewhere we are plugging it wrong. Somewhere we are not doing the right things. So, where we can harness the potential of this entire brain. And people say, oh, we use 5% and 2% and 10% and all. It's just totally a myth because as the brain be it, we are supposed to be using all the elements of the brain. The better we take care of it, the better performance it gives you. Now, peak performance, what is really peak performance? If let's say I have this most sophisticated, and always I love to give the example of Mozart. So even to my patients, when I'm talking, I said, look, Mozart is an amazing musician. Now, he is playing the music through your radio, let's say, but your radio has a problem. And then you keep on blaming Mozart is not playing well, Mozart is not doing good. You need to fine tune your radio. So this is exactly like that. The power, the cosmos, the cosmic consciousness is playing through our instrument. and this is the instrument, this is my radio. So if I don't fine tune it, how can I get the best of the performance? And peak performance is really about utilization of my complete abilities, as you mentioned rightly initially, to the purpose. So I got this little mantra many, many years back, from again my spiritual teacher, and that mantra sort of remained in my heart all along. She told me a beautiful thing. In fact, when I completed my neurology studies, this was a fascinating thing I'll never forget, because I go to her and I say that, look, I completed my neurology and got honors and got first class and all blah blah, all the hulas I was talking to her about. She says, go burn your books. And I was like, hello, I completed 14 years of neurology, and how do I burn my books? So I never understood then, many, many years back, what she meant was, start doing practices, start doing something which will allow you to heal, because you don't want to remain, the book kind of a person, or the bookworm. So I never understood that conceptually until many, many years back. And then she told me something which is I was alluding to: do some things which is creative, meaningful, and noble. And then very quickly I started to realize, oh, if I just see the patients, that's going to be a noble task, yes, but where is the creativity? There's no creativity in that. And meaning, yes, meaning, I'm changing somebody's life, that meaning will always remain, but there's no creativity. So when these words came into me, I always sort of wanted to explore my brain in the creative spirit. And many years back, again, Dr. Neatling is one of my favorite mentors, and I did his assessment. It's called Neatling Brain Inventory, and it's one of the top inventories, for even Forbes has certified it. And when I met him and when I did this inventory, I very quickly also understood my brain's preferences. What are my preferences, which is deciding my communication, my behavior, the way I take a certain decision, the way I do a certain task. And with this, of course, we then further did a lot of research. I took this tool, we created something called My Brain Design to help the youngsters, 12 to 18-year olds, to find a path, to find their calling, basically. How do I decide where is my calling? Because that was my painful story as well. So it was my arranged career. So I wanted more people to have the love career right from the start. And that is published in the book called Future Ready Now, which is available globally in Amazon. So when I did the needling, I very quickly found that, yes, I have a creative side of the brain, which I have to utilize for my best peak performance. So getting that creativity, getting that meaningfulness, and then the nobility associated with it was sort of my goal going forwards. So that also became my working mantra. My everything revolved around these three aspects.
Yeah, it's very beautiful. Creativity, meaningful, and noble. It is very important to use both sides of your brain. And being a brain doctor, you have brought it into practice and for good use, definitely. We've been talking about all your stories of success, but I'm sure you would have faced a lot of doubts in between, self-doubts, and often, how do I grow? Am I on the right path? Was there at any point of time in your career that you questioned your path? Is this correct for me? Or you didn't have to do healing. You didn't have to study your own brain to find answers, but you still went through. So how did you navigate? I mean, when you summarize it now, it looks like there were no hiccups or there were no
Absolutely.
challenges. But I'm sure that there would have been something. Can you share something about it? And how did you pick up your strength during those times?
So thank you. I think, yes, you're right. Now, it looks like a nice little story, but there's so many things which goes where, you start to doubt whether this is for you, or your capabilities or your capacities. So very first thing, I was about 38 years old, and I'll go from the reverse order. And somebody said, I wanted to do an MBA just to expand my skills. Because in the medical school, we are never taught all the skills for, let's say, I want to reach out to millions of people, the scale potential of it, or something which I can contribute, the social enterprise, etc. We are never taught all this, and I wish medical schools now start teaching all that, because this is an important part of
Mhm.
the entire world's existence. So I was 38, and obviously I was in a very good role and everything was fine, and then but I wanted to learn. So I started to apply for the MBA, and I started to go to the counselor, and counselor said, sorry, at your age, MBA is not possible. You will not be able to make it. And I said, yeah, that's fine. I mean, my age should not be a barrier because we take a long time to study. I mean, 14 years, we
Yeah.
just keep studying. So can we try? And she says, but then GMAT is going to be a very difficult process for you because there's maths involved. Yes, I said, can we try? And literally, to her point, GMAT started to write exams and failed, and once failed, take second time, third time, never got the correct marks, fifth time, sixth time, seventh time, and seven times. It took me already a 1 year and a half, and I was very, very, very persistent. I said, I'll crack this one fine day, I'll crack it. I'm not giving up too soon. So a lot of people, a lot of my friends said, you're wasting time, because they would just keep me seeing in my spare time doing maths problems, and everywhere where I'll just take my maths book, and they're like, what are you doing? You don't need to do all this. I said, I need to do it for myself. So I kept on pursuing. After the 9 tries, I was able to get a decent score, and I applied to all the MBA schools. And I would write in the essay saying that, look, please do not look at my age, because I am still young at heart. All my 14 years has gone only in the neurology. And from here onwards, this is my vision. This is my mission. I just need these skills so that, I can deliver this. I wrote to all the schools. I got called in multiple this, and to the surprise, Cambridge, I got selected. MIT Sloan was a wait list. I got into also INSEAD. So all the schools offered the offer letters. And then I get back to the counselor and said that, look, these are all the offer letters. So somewhere, sometimes people, and that is the job of the people around you. Sometimes there are motivators, and then there are sometimes demotivators around you. So there's this story which I have always remembered and which I keep it in my mind. This frogs, little frogs were all going up the wall, and there was a competition. There was a big fat frog, and then there was a little small other frog, and then there was one but two tiny little frog which was there. And the competition begins, and everybody is climbing the wall, and this one tiny little frog wins. And then people are wondering, they were, but these mighty frogs, very hefty, they could have won the race. What was so special about this tiny being which that it could climb the wall? And then someone said he was deaf. Because he was deaf, he never listened to the demotivators. So because of that, he reached to that place. So for me also, this became sort of a mantra that, yes, I would not listen to anything which is coming negative, but it was a process. I had to learn through that. And then if I step back one time prior in my life, the challenges, I strongly feel that, first of all, I always say, thank your problem. Because of that problem, you now understand a different side of your facility, which was never there, faculty which you never thought would have been possible. So my mom went through a very severe crisis post her hysterectomy and the surgery. It didn't sort of go well. She went into a severe issue. There was a severe depression, etc., and all. And I was in Canada back then. So it was at certain point in time, the depression was so severe that she left home. We couldn't find her for 4 to 5 days. I had to fly down. Those were sort of, the 4 to 5 days, which was really very painful. And in that state of delusion that she had, she gave away all her properties. She gave away all her whatever savings that she had to her partner. And then when we go back to the banks, and like everything is empty, there's nothing there in the bank. My dad looks at me and says that, what do we do from here? I said, we rebuild, we just restart. So there are times when, to the extent till now, I don't know if she would ever listen to this podcast, but then I always tell my dad that, look, she forgot the entire episode. We are thankful that we could get her back, and she's fine now. Although this is a long story, she's perfectly fine. She lives with me. And this always reminds us that, there, despite having all the degrees, despite having all the best possessions and all, you can never be sure when the life flips. So you have always to be ready. So I always say there's an outer wealth, and then there is an inner wealth. At that point in time, when you are completely losing your outer wealth, can you ignite your inner wealth? And that inner wealth is persistence, prayers, belief in yourself, capacity to rebuild, emotional resilience, capacity to collaborate, have that positivity, that motivation, that you still have the life. So you see the half glass full and not half glass empty. So that is how then we started our journey back again. And then back to my school days, I was heavily bullied. I was one of those people who was right, black and blue bullied. and I would never be allowed to go on the stage, and never be allowed to speak anything. And because obviously, I would get a lot of marks, good marks. I would just not study. People would just see me going all around and then getting very good marks. So I was in a Xavier's. It was a very nice convent school, beautiful. Everything was wonderful, but the bullying part was very painful. So always I would wonder, but I wouldn't retaliate. There was nothing that I would do. I would just happily, simply go back, and then I come back home, and I had this safe space where I could talk to my parents. I could talk to my mother for hours and hours long. So they sort of, let go of my that pain. So everybody, each of us should have that safe space where you don't
Mhm.
have to worry. What if I tell my vulnerabilities? What if I speak out? What would people understand? So I think I was very fortunate to have that in the form of my spiritual teacher, in the form of my parents. And then this friends episode, which I just talked about, that happened actually three times to me. There were similar episodes, but not obviously 25
Mhm.
years of a relationship, but then a 15 and a 10. And very quickly, the thing about pattern, we keep saying, right, there's a pattern from the universe, there's a pattern from the universe. It's actually not a universe pattern. It is the way your
All
brain and
right.
mind is wired, that you keep attracting it until you are consciously aware about it, saying, am I reacting or am I responding? The moment your response sort of sets back in, this pattern vanishes, this pattern sort of finishes. And interestingly enough, all of us, we talk about the 8 billion people, and I'm very confident about this data set. 8 billion people, 8 billion brains, 8 billion minds. You bring it along, there are only three things where these patterns come and evolve within our lives. Either it is related to the relationships. So there's always a troubled relationship, toxic relationship, problems in the relationship, or it is about the career slash work, profession, finance. So you always land up losing money, always having financial issues. And the third thing is about personal health. So you set to get problems over problems, because there was a study which was done, 50 to 60,000 thoughts that we think. And the scientists wondered, really, if we went to do the audit of all these thoughts, what is emerging out of it? And what he found through multiple questionnaires was that either of these three things is only where repetitive thoughts come in. Either it is related to the health, it's related to the relationships, or it's related to work and profession. It's not some fourth thing. The some fourth thing was very few percentage. That was evolution, about who am I, and where do I go next, and what is my origin, etc. But that was the
Mhm.
tiniest bit out of all the three major thoughts that people had.
Got
So
it.
it is a very interesting thing that all of us goes through the exact same process.
Absolutely amazing. I mean, you just sum it up in three things, only three problems. It all boils down to just three. And the fourth one is not really a problem. It's more of a
Challenge.
seeking of an
It's a teaching.
understanding of oneself. It's so beautiful. I also liked where you mentioned that the moment we rephrase our words, we rephrase our life. And you have explained that so beautifully about how you brought in the, sharing your vulnerability and building your resilience through that. But you've talked so many times about your spiritual mentor, Swamini Vimalananda, and she is the one who actually told you that you need to build something or find a career that is going to be creative, meaningful, and noble. But as someone who has mastered the complexities of the brain, you also emphasize the importance of stillness, like meditation practices, like you also mentioned the Brahmri. I would be happy if you could talk about the how the brain responds to the Brahmri meditation. But can you share your own experience of stepping into stillness? I'm sure you do it every day on a daily, day-to-day routine, probably. What does meditation do? Pause, having a pause during the day, how does it help? How does it bring about a peace, a clarity, or focus, or an insight that would help us shape our next step in life?
Absolutely. So I think I'm a great fan of this thing that we are all living in a beta world. It's a high firing. The beta is the fastest wave in the brain. Oh I want to achieve this and I want to get this, and the rat race that we keep talking about. But then there's a very nice wave called alpha. Alpha is a slow sinusoidal wave. It's like, when I close my eyes, when I go out in nature, when I'm listening to something soothing, music, all this gives me alpha. Just before I go to sleep, there's a very slow, again, a wave called theta. That is the wave, a lot of people, when they hit the bed, they start to get all the ideas. There's a free running thing which happens. Or when you go to the shower, there's this free running of ideas which happens. I'm driving a car and suddenly so many things appear. That is when you're in that theta state. And then you go into delta. Delta is like when you're completely asleep. And then the fastest wave, which is called the gamma. So these are the five waves which sort of keep playing in our brain. Now, I need a little beta in the front because I want to take my next step. And what do I do? What do I not do? And then I need a lot of alpha at my back, because when a relaxation comes in, I need alpha. And just before I go to sleep, I definitely need a theta, otherwise I can't go to sleep. So all the waves are important, their locations are important, the power is important, the way they function is very important. Now, in this fast paced world, and I ask this people as an audit in your entire day, do an audit and tell me how many times do you close your eyes? Where are you building
Mm.
your alpha? There's people say, oh, maybe 1 minute. Some of the cultures, they do 5 times prayer, which is amazing. At least at that time, you close your eyes. So then you ask yourself, there's no possibility of building that alpha. And if you have a very good peak of the alpha, the 8 to 12 hertz, that's the frequency, 10 is an average. If you start to build a higher peak, let's say your peak is 11, 12, 13, and you can also get into 14 to 15, your all the focus, attention, the reading speed, processing speed, complex problem solving speed, emotional regulation, everything kicks in. But here we are
Wow.
just continuing to do the same, the like a roller coaster, the ride of beta, 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 beta. It's not leading us to the outcome, because we are in this fast where the brain is just getting exhausted, fatigue, burnout, can't perform, anxiety, worry, cannot sleep, because it is in this beta. But the moment you shift yourself into that peak alpha, so spending 5 minutes, closing your eyes, getting into theta another 5 minutes, another 5 minutes of visualization, of reflection, those 15 minutes would actually mean at least minimum 10 to 20 times of your performance. But we just, it's like a cycle, I'm continuously, let's say, keeping going on the cycle, just to wonder that it was a stationary cycle. So all my efforts was just right therein. But if you shift it to build these waves. So meditation helps us build this alpha and theta, allows us to get into this theta. Visualization helps us build this theta. Closing the eyes, going out in nature, grounding, listening to a soothing music allows you to get into alpha. The breathing, the humming that you described, the primary, allows you to get into the gamma. So all these paroxysmally, when you are able to build, it's like, building the biceps muscle. When I am asking the muscle build, it won't build. I have to work towards it. So I can't ask the alpha, hey, build alpha. Alpha won't build like that. I have to work towards it. So the moment my all the brain waves are set, I don't get into this burnout rhythm, or where everybody is rushing into. And now I think in this world we have one other rhythm which we are falling prey to it, and that's the idling rhythm. One single firing of the brainwave which happens, that is happening from the social media. Mindless scrolling, there's a very nice term from Oxford
Doom
Dictionary.
scrolling,
Yeah, doom scrolling and brain rot. That is an official
brain rot.
terminology
Wow.
now. So saying that, when you're continuously scrolling, what are you doing? You're not allowing beta, you're not allowing alpha, theta, you just have one single rhythm. What you don't use, you lose. So whenever all the time when the brain will keep evolving, keep developing, you've never built an alpha. So the entire the creation will think that's not required. Let's eliminate that. This is not required. Eliminate that. And that is the reason more and more attention deficit is a problem. People with anxiety is a problem. Even young people, between the 13 and 18, I never had patients between that age group ever, in my so many years of
Mm-hmm.
practice. But last 3 years, it's just remarkable to see the numbers. They just come in and say that, I start to read one line and then cannot focus. I move to the other line. And I mean, I remember we used to read for hours and days long in the library, and we never had that problem because there was no distractions. There was no this firing of the beta which was happening. So if people spend 5 to 15 minutes, even they start with 5 and then 15 minutes building and keeping this thing intact, things can be solved. And then sleep, that's another. The entire world is in a sleep debt. There was a data which was done. The amount of the debt that the entire world has in terms of sleep is just humongous. And why is it? Because we keep on scrolling. The 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, we let the melatonin, which is helpful for our sleep, just disappear. And then we try to do multitask, like we try, because now we have very few hours of active focus, and then we just mess it up again. So all these little things matter a lot when it comes to brain health. And that's why
Mm.
movers was born. The movers was essentially born as a technique for peak performance, because when we studied all these people, their lifestyles, we studied all the benefits and advantages, the brain changes which is happening. This is what we thought the best thing: 5 minutes each M meditation or oxygenation. So you can do a different breathing practice.
Mhm.
E for visualization, where you have to understand, where are you going next? What is your life like? What is my next week looking
Mm.
like? My next month looking like? My next year looking like? That is visualization. E, exercise, moving at least to some steps, if not steps, at least doing balance, coordination. So R for reading something affirmative, something which is positive, something which is motivating. And then S is scribing. So I always say there is a green journal and a red journal. So I keep the green journal where I can write all the positive things and all the things of visualize stuff, what comes in. And the red journal is all the negative feelings, the emotions, the anger, the frustrations, the issues that come out. That red journal will just keep that. So scribing is catharsis, letting it out, and not even
Mm.
reading it. You never read a red journal back again. You just read and focus on the green journal. So that is how you sort of train your brain, your mind. And peak performance, I think each of us, literally 8 billion people, are born to have the peak performance. But in this entire lack of understanding and lack of that manual where you understand to develop it, we lose it. So Limitless Brain Labs job is to build such manuals for 12 to 18-year-olds. How do you go next? Manuals for adults, and then manuals for also people who are in that little a group where evolution, they're seeking that change. And believe me, physiologically speaking, anything that you're doing, right from meditation to this, it's not about qualities which improve. So not that I become more compassionate, not that that will happen, I become very kind, but physiological changes happen in the brain. Once a change happens, it's for good. There are a lot of studies. Mingyur, the Buddhist monk or the Tibetan monk who has been studied, how his brain is, sort of he's growing in age chronologically, but his brain age is shrinking. Just the reverse is happening. For us, brain age will already have gone, way ahead of our chronological age. So if I'm, let's say, 45, my brain age could come to 65, which means I've lost already 20 years of that cognition power. But for Mingyur, it's reverse. His chronological age,
Mm.
and here is his brain age. He's about 40 and his brain age is 30. So all this is possible physiologically. So you can do hard coding, you can do hard wiring, but persistence, commitment, doing it daily, this is the key.
It's this is so wonderful. Like, if you want to achieve peak performance, become movers. Yeah,
Yes, use movers in your.
it's a lovely acronym. Once again, thank you for sharing this. But how long does it take for the brain to rewire itself? Let's say I start. You mentioned about the sleep debt. I'm an active contributor to that. But when we have so much to do, how long does the brain take to readjust, to recalibrate, or to rewire itself? What can I do today so I can be with a better brain in, say, 1 month?
That's a beautiful question. Thank you for asking that. But that's the beauty of neuroplasticity. The brain is so moldable. It's so flexible. Few years back, we thought, oh, whatever happened in the brain, now we have to live with this brain, and that's it. We can't change it. Nothing can be done about it. Now we know through the neuroplasticity studies that we can change the brain. But when you start to build a habit, there would be the resistance which will come from the brain,
For sure.
because brain is ekdam, it likes to be in the comfort zone. It is one of the laziest organ, takes about 20 to 25% of oxygen, gets the most nutrients, but does not like to work. It just likes to work, in a comfort zone. And that's why most people, we talk about the effort zone and comfort zone, because it likes to remain protected. There's a little feeling of procrastinate. Most people also procrastinate. They would like to be
Mm.
status quo, because this is the brain's property. This is the actual property with which all of us, our brains have. And why it is doing that? It is just wanting it to preserve, because in the good old days, when there used to be threats from lions and tigers and all that, there was a threat to life. So if you adventure, if you go out a lot, there's a danger, there's a threat. So the survival mechanism was, don't do that, let's not go there, let's not do this. But now we don't live in those kind of threats and environment. We can definitely protect ourselves. Our longevity has increased, but the brain's habit is still that old self habit. So 21 days in the Atomic Habit, beautiful things are written by the author of Atomic Habits, that if you start doing, you're just shocking, you're just giving that little thing to the brain, and then 21 days it will have moved a little. And then if you keep on practicing it about 66 days to little bit consolidate that habit, then it becomes a routine for you. And then another 66 days, if you continue to do it, there is a shift in the physiological changes which happens. Another 66 days potentially, so we're looking at 6 to 8 months where it could have
Mhm.
been for good. I mean, for me, and it can vary, because it can vary between adults, it can vary for children, because children have a very different age, and the brain, the way it works. It can vary for old individuals. It can vary also between the exposure, how good your exposure is, or how good your training is, your technique is. So it's so variable, and that is the reason why these kind of trials or scientific studies have been limited, because there are so many variables. There's so much of compounding effects which is happening. But given a general rule, 6 to 8 months is definitely what is required. Now, what people do, and this is what I have realized, is they start something, and not just generally when it comes to evolution, but for my patients as well. They start something and say, oh, in 10 days it didn't work, 15 days it didn't work, and then they definitely give up by the third week. The time when the 21 days was just there, you were just about to make the change, you give it up. So persistence, commitment, understanding these numbers, and initially it'll be damn painful. When I started to meditate, to close the eyes, to even sit straight for that matter, the forget the meditation. I always say that, look, don't even think of meditation. That will anyways happen, because you never do the meditation. Meditation must always happen. But that
Happen.
preparedness, the doing part, sitting still for a good 1 hour, not allowing your mind to go here and there. If a mosquito comes in, this comes in, you suddenly, your mind is again, disturbed. So making yourself still, understanding and looking at the breath, seeing the awareness of the state where what your body is in, what is happening to your mind, this itself is difficult. So initially, everything is going to be like you have to climb an Everest. But the beauty of the brain is its feedback is very fast. So once you start to do all this, it gives you that reflection also. What is happening inside? Lot of subconscious processes apne aap se, it just happens automatically. It just comes out, and those subconscious processes now you can consciously start to work on it. But it's just that little effort initially what is required. I strongly feel and believe, and I always, that's why I never say that, look, I treat people or I want to treat people. I really want to heal people, because that healing happens from within. My role is just that kindling of that healing, because each of
Mm.
us are deep healers within. Each of our body's own mechanisms are super intelligent. They know exactly how things happen. The brain is also equally potently intelligent to understand and to reframe itself. We're just giving that support. We're just igniting that knowledge, that how you do it, and then leave it. Then things will happen by itself. I mean, my own emotional trauma and experience, I had to do Ujjayi. That's my favorite breathing. Ujjayi means win victory over the mind. What a beautiful Sanskrit word, right? Ujjayi. You have the victory of the mind. I had to consistently do it for 1.5 years. I think it was almost close,
Wow.
when, I had to, like, 500, 600 rounds every single day. Like, I was just hell bent that I want to change it. And somewhere Brahmari also became a strong part of practice. And then what used to happen is that people start to straight away go to meditation. I think before that is the preparation also includes breathing. So are you trying to, sort of get to the breathing patterns which calms down your nervous system, which gets into that states of alpha automatically? Then meditation becomes much easy. So it is not, it
Mm.
cannot, meditation cannot be a fad. Oh, let me learn this type of meditation and that type of meditation. It's good to know, but then you have to start doing it as a practice as a habit, as a routine, as a ritual for long years. Now, a lot of people, when we started talking about Lalita Sahasranam or different chantings, people started to come back to us, our lab, and say that, but I have been doing it for 20 long years and nothing has happened. I've been doing it for 15 years and nothing has happened. I said, nothing has happened or nothing will happen until the time you take the control over it, you become aware, you start to know those processes, you start to understand the meaning to quality over quantity. I don't want to do it as a just a like one practice routine what is happening. That's why there's a difference between a ritual and a routine. When I'm brushing my teeth, I'm not even aware how, where I'm brushing my teeth, what happened to my teeth. Oh, go get up in the morning and just brush your teeth. That is just a habit and a routine, autopilot. So there's a brain part called basal ganglia. That basal ganglia just takes it over. There's no use of your prefrontal cortex, no use of your beautiful gray areas that you have. You're not using that. So if you start to engage those, the prefrontal cortex, start to witness, start to examine, start to feel what you're feeling, the qualities of each of the mantras, what it is trying to tell you, how are you relating to that meaning, what is the qualities that you are imbibing from that meaning, then the changes start to happen. So it's a process.
Process. Very beautiful. I had Dr. Jayanti Kumaresh, the very noted Veena artist. She would say that I tell my students to practice at least 1 hour a day. It's only one song. Let's say the beginning, the Sarali versa has to be practiced. Sarigama padanisa sanidapa magarisa. That's the only thing. But do that for 1 hour and do it consciously. She says, my kids, for 5 minutes, this concentration, and then they just do it. They just play. It becomes so mechanical. There's no involvement and it doesn't come out. You cannot obviously become a master at it if there's no involvement of the heart and the brain. So again,
Absolutely.
very beautifully backed up by this science and the brain studies. Yeah, one needs to get into it. 6 to 8 months is an investment in personal health, very important.
See, we keep
So,
investing on our health, which means, oh, there's a new gadget. Let me go and get that gadget, investing on, oh, let me go ahead and try this infrared. Let me go ahead and try an HBOT, hyperbaric oxygen, longevity. Are we investing in ourselves?
ourselves.
Investing in is all about changes that we do in our rituals. So investing on
Mm,
comes a second part of it, but investing in comes the first part of it. Oh, I will go ahead and buy this supplement, and that supplement is going to do all the magic for me. The magic will not happen until and unless you have actually gone inside and then unfolded that intelligent mechanism which you already have. So many years back I
mm,
was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. So the report comes in and I had a joint problem, and then I tell the doctor I refuse to accept it. It's not there. I don't buy it. I'm not going to. And he said, no, no, you have to start the medicine, your joint is a problem. I said, no, I will do all the things that it takes to understand what made that joint go wrong. Give me at least a year. Or I mean, he said, that's stupid, that cannot happen. I said, okay, give me at least 6 months. No, 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 no. We cannot wait, your joint will get damaged. Okay, give me a 1 month. Give me 1 month, I'll come back to you. He was a very dear friend of mine, rheumatologist. And I said, I'll come back to you, don't worry, I will start whatever you're talking about, the immunomodulators and all, but give me that time. I sat back and then, started to wonder what could have gone wrong, what is happening, what is really my diet, lifestyle, what is contributing to it. And I started to make all the changes. And luckily, I was a great fan of pranic healing. I said, okay, I'm going to use all the things that I've learned pranic healing on my own joint and do everything what it takes. 1 month later, it came negative. And he couldn't believe
mm.
it. He says, no, this is not possible. We did your titer also. Titer was so high. This was high. I said, look, that is in front of you. If you want, I'll come back again 1 month later and we can repeat it. And he says, yeah, let's do that, because we need to follow it up. And that second month, and since then, it's always been negative. So I think it's about understanding that mechanism, what is really going on inside, and trying to recalibrate it, because we don't give pause, as you rightly mentioned. There's no pause in our lives. Pause is required for mental cleansing, for physical cleansing, for emotional cleansing. We don't do, let's say I don't clean my house at all and I keep on bringing stuff, bringing stuff, bringing stuff. What is going to happen? A point in time, I cannot live in the house. I'm anxious. I cannot live in my mind. I'm depressed. I cannot live in my mind. because you have not done the housekeeping properly. The housekeeping entails that you go ahead and prune, you go ahead and cut, you go ahead and give that pause. All that if you would have done, possibly we won't land it up in the mental state that we are in.
It always has to be head over heart and also ensure that they work in sync.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, the heart brain
Yeah.
coherence.
Yes. I would also like to talk about burnouts. Now, you've worked across multiple continents, I think five of them,
Mhm.
or maybe even more. And you worked across, like you mentioned, different cultures and different environments. How did this shape your own identity and sense of belonging? Was there a moment when you said, okay, my true home is elsewhere? And but then you also said you have to go inside. So what is it? What is it? What is home for you? How do you manage all of these things? And how do you manage burnout?
Beautiful question. So Vasudeva Kutumbakam is what I believe in. The entire world is a family. So wherever different countries that I visited, I was always welcomed. I was always loved. But obviously there were cultural nuances. Now, as being grown up in India, you're not too much aware that the moment I got landed up in North America, they had very different cultures. Their working style was very different. The way they entirely look at a certain thing was very different. So that was a little bit, culturally shocking for me. I mean, I entered into let's say, a hall where the teacher is teaching, and how do you even carry a coffee to that place? How do you wear shorts? When a teacher is teaching. So all this, because this is where what is ingrained in you as a subconscious, this that there's a respect involved with the teacher. You don't call teacher with the first name. So little things like that was very difficult for my brain and the mind to sort of come to that. But then that is where you start to learn. That is where you start to let go of the beliefs. Sometimes they're good beliefs, sometimes they're just useless beliefs. So you start to embrace all the and include all of those different opinions, and that shapes you, because then you start to become a little more careful. You are respectful of a different tradition. I went to Africa, and there was a completely different experience altogether for me. I was living in Congo, and the people were so nice. I didn't know the language. French is largely spoken there. My French was not that great, so I could barely sort of survive there, but the love was so immense that it was a very I never felt out of home then. And if I still go
Mhm.
back to Africa, I love that continent. I don't know, there's something always attracts to me there. And then working in the completely Middle East, it was a different, again, another cultural set altogether. I used to be the medical operations director for Arabian Healthcare Group, and we had some 150 doctors which were part of our cohort. So again, working with very different minds, very different brain sets, but somewhere, the common thread which I have seen, which binds all of us, irrespective of caste, culture, religion, is love. It's just that, that love which you have as a human existence, that love and the care which never, gets irrespective. There's nobody who will say, oh, I don't need love. Some may say, I don't need money, which is fine. Some may say, oh, I don't need a fancy car, I don't need a fancy house. But not a single person will say, I don't need love. Love is a universal language. It is what requires to be practiced. And I wish that each of us get back to that origin of the love human being that we are. So for me, burnout never came in because of that reason, because I used to love people, people used to love me. There was always that sense of, fulfillment when we work together. So and burnout, it's a very interesting data set which is coming up when we talk about burnout. And I keep reading papers on it because it's sad. It just sinks my heart that, firstly, when you love your work, you love the people as part of the work, you love yourself doing that work, where is the question of burnout? So if you go into the deeper aspects of burnout, is it related to the work that you're doing? There's a mismatch between your brain's preferences and the work that you're doing. And that's why I'm very passionate about the project what we are going to do called My Limitless Brain. Figure out, is that your brain, and is that the career that you are wanting to have? Is that the brain and the life path that you have decided? Because if you start to scientifically understand, take a step back, steer it out. If it's not matching, just go out. It will be painful in the initial this, but eventually it will land up to where you are supposed to be there. So it is not a career for you, it is not a job for you, it becomes your calling, it becomes who you are. That love transfers, translates. So for me, because of that love, this burnout thing did not come. But the data and the statistics is glaring. The data is saying that, the as the generations will keep evolving, the Gen Z and then the Gen Alpha and then the Gen Beta, there is going to be an astronomical change in the way of work. Like, for example, there's going to
Mm.
be portfolio careers. I currently have one or two things that I work with. Tomorrow, there's going to be 10 or 20 things. AI is going to come into play. So, it's going to be a very different workplace and environment. In that environment, if you are not trained to keep your compose mentis, if you are not trained to have that inner core with you, 100% guaranteed burnout. It will happen. I mean, by default, it will happen because you have not understood
Yes.
yourself. You have not understood what you can contribute. You don't know what you love. You don't know what to expect that from that particular job or a profession or career or whatever that be. And then the entire mathematics fails out. So it is all about, again, going back to the roots, going back to the basics. What is my interest? Can I contribute? The ikigai, the beautiful ikigai, I think that's written by a author from Calgary. So this is where you sort of go ahead and evaluate.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Ikigai also beautifully blends with the creative, meaningful, and noble that, yeah, Swamini Vimalananda had suggested for you. Interestingly, you mentioned about the AI and how does the brain accept AI and what can I do so I'm not, I become redundant?
See, AI is lovely. I mean, my entire day, the number of the AI stuff that I'm using is just unimaginable. So everything. So my notes are taken care by the AI. When I'm talking to a patient, I have a little voice, this note, which will convert into very quickly the notes. When I'm talking to somebody, the Zoom summary is taken care. So all this is what the AI is working behind the scenes for you. AI is a wonderful servant. The day you make it the master, that is where the
Mm.
problem will come. So let's understand AI a little bit from the perspective of the jobs that it can do for you, the tasks that it can do for you. But what is lacking in the AI is the creativity, is the empathy, is the emotion. And if I were to summarize from the Sanskrit, this of it, the viveka, what we call the discrimination and the vairagya, these are the two wings where you evolve yourself. So AI is never going to be a tool for me for evolution. AI will never be able to do that because it is missing that core aspect of the empathy, creativity, and the humanness of who I am. But my redundant tasks, my repetitive tasks, my mundane mechanical tasks will be definitely taken by AI. Now, the biggest question that I always pause to myself, or whenever I'm in this conversation of AI, is, let's say out of an hour, my 50 minutes are taken by AI. AI is doing everything for me. And
Mm.
10 minutes only I have to contribute to give those commands and to do this. And the rest 50 minutes, the AI will take care of everything. What am I going to do in those 50 minutes? Am I going to mindlessly scroll the social media? Then I am in for a brain rot. Am I going to use that to get inside, meditate, and change my emotional state and being? Those 50 minutes are valuable part of my that 1 hour. Am I making that into a sacred hour, or am I just making into a brain rot, brain completely a junked hour? So it depends on me. So the perspective of the AI, of how you use it or it uses you, will be on that individual person, because I feel a lot of
Brilliant.
time will get generated, where we can reflect, where we can work upon, as the potential of humanness can even be explored to another dimension. That's why I strongly feel coming 2 decades is of consciousness. The study of consciousness will expand tremendously. The study of emotionals or emotional well-being or mental capacities will also explode, because we will have time for all of this, which we never had before.
It's also kind of an evolution, I feel, as listening to what you say. We have become very mechanical post the Industrial Revolution. And with all of this social media thing, I think we have become even more of a machine and absolutely lost the capacity to even think at times using the AI now.
And what hurts me? What hurts me really terribly is I do get patients who come back to me and said that, I put all my details into it, and then, but AI has told me that. And AI, whenever AI is, yes, great, it will go ahead and check it will crawl your web, and then it'll go ahead and check all the data sets, what is there, etc. and all, but it cannot be the ultimate truth. Where is the
Yes.
experience part of it, because my little white hair is giving that experience that I have seen the patterns of 50 patients undergoing that or 30 patients undergoing that and all. Is AI able to draw that, and how does it become an ultimate truth? So the problem with a lot of current generation is that, but AI said that. Yeah, so what?
Yeah.
Why are you not questioning it? In good old times, when something used to come to us, we would go to libraries, we would go ahead and study it in the books, we'll go and at least do the efforts with Google. Let me Google it out, let me find the source of it, let me go ahead and do that. In a very latest experiment, when we put forth one of the experiments related to the cow dung, people just came back to said, but chat gpt does not mention that. So chat GPT, we cannot mention that because it does not have a brain and a mind of its own as of now. So it was just going to flush out what has happened. So people's understanding of AI also needs to improve. What
Yeah.
is AI actually doing behind the scenes? Because, otherwise all these misconceptions will be there and we will always fall prey to it, and we have to understand how to use it. So all this, I think, is the schools and the education system must take up this approach, must start to make the children understand behind the scenes story of the AI. Otherwise, we'll become lame AI dependent
Yeah.
individuals.
Brain rot.
Yeah, totally.
Beautiful, beautiful
Yeah.
terminology there. But yes, I think it's an evolution. I think down the line, people would start, they will be forced to use the brain. Otherwise, we'll just lose ourselves out in the competition. But I think the best investment that one can make is on oneself. I read that somewhere, and it's just becoming more and more true these days. And you also beautifully mentioned about not just the financial wealth, but invest on the inner wealth. It also comes down beautifully to the inner empowerment that I always talk about. One can get empowered with the name, fame, money, and all of that. But unless we are empowered from within, none of those is going to really help us. Shweta, I want to talk to you about the woman that you are. There is so much strength in embracing all the part of us, but the feminine aspect of being a woman. And I also believe that even the men have certain feminine aspects. But we will talk about you as a person, as a woman. And can you share a time in your journey when you consciously allowed yourself to fully embrace your womanhood and not something that's separate from your success, but at the very heart of it?
Beautiful, beautiful. So I think we are all, if we to go back to the ancient wisdom, we are all Shiva Shakti. So it's all the male and the female energies that we are together. So I have the masculine component also, and I have the feminine component also. This reminds me of the book Alan Barbara and Peace. It's a book called Why Women Cry and Women Can't Read Roadmaps. I'm not getting the exact name, but it's a beautiful book. Why Men Don't Listen and Women Can't Read Roadmaps. It's a beautiful book,
Mm,
and it mentions that there is a little scoring system in somewhere middle of the book where it talks about how much masculinity that you carry and how much femininity that you carry. There's a little score which will come in, and so it's so beautiful that even the Western authors, even the people are understanding that there are two aspects, the yin and the yang, when we talk about of your own personality, of your own self. Now that is what we have to address to. So am I mostly feminine, or do I have those masculine components also? Now, for example, suddenly there's a divorce which happens and the child comes back to the mother. Now the mother had always, let's say, 70% of the femininity and the 30% of the masculinity, because obviously there was a man taking care of all the other things, etc. Now suddenly she's a single mother, so that masculinity component has to expand because she'll have to feed the baby, she'll have to get all the things for the baby, etc. in life, which she was not doing before. So all of us has this ability to shift the proportion and the percentages of what we have. And that's why the entire concept of women empowerment, I don't believe in that, because there's nothing called women empowerment. There's always something called human empowerment, because in that human empowerment, both men and women, they are the equal sides of it. It's a coin, it's they are both the sides of it. Now as a woman, I'm very proud, I'm very happy as in the woman body and women self, for two reasons. Neurologically speaking, women has been given this ability to sort of task shift attention multiple times. So for example,
mm,
you ask a man to go into a closet and the socks are just lying there. You tell him, go find the socks. He'll 100% come back with a no. The socks are right there. Can you not see it? No, he'll not be able to see it because the brain's wiring is very focal. It's just unilateral. It's just one single pathway because they were supposed to be hunting. They were supposed to be the hunter gatherers. So the wiring had been in such a way that it'll allow to focus on a task. But wiring for a woman is like we can do multiple tasks, not as multitaskers, but attention at multiple tasks can be shift. I'm taking care of kid also, I'm answering a phone call also, I'm talking to my maid also, I'm driving also. 100 things are happening all at once. For a woman, it's a cross wiring which is happening. Women has been given the slightly more ability of verbal areas. So that's why, a lot of women talk and a lot of men, in a conversation, if there's a conflict, you won't see men talking at all because that's their freeze mechanism. They just can't talk because these areas are not much evolved. That was also for a reason because they didn't have to do that to preserve their energies. While for women, it's slightly more evolved. So having both of those characteristics and ability for me as a woman with its women brain and with the neurological fundamental basics, I love being a woman and interacting with so many people. You call it men, you call it women. Thankfully for me, I never had to face anything which was discrimination from the point of view of women, because I think when it comes to medicine, it really does not matter. I'm sure there are a lot of other professions who may have to go through this unfortunate discrimination, but I think for us in the medical field, it's always, I mean, you talk and look at the number of the neurologists that, let me give an example of India, because I know that statistics very well. So if you look at the total number of the neurologists in the India is a huge country, by the way, with population which is just absolutely massive. There are only roughly about 7,000 trained registered neurologists. So 7,000 people and that's it, right? So it really does not matter. It's a man, woman, etc. So in my field, in my way of my profession, etc., it really does not matter. But I'm sure that, a lot of forums talk about it. A lot of people in the corporate world talk about it because the corporate ladder has not been designed. And that's why we are now talking of the symmetry of having equal number of men and equal number of women in board seats. I think that has come out. All the resolutions have come out where equal number of board seats should be given. And I strongly feel this is a great move because the way a woman is going to think and look at a problem is going to be very different from how a man will approach a problem. So inclusivity is like celebrating the differences, bringing both the best sides and then putting it forwards. Dr. Neethling used to say this, and I still love it, that let's say there's somebody who is very dominant left brain, very linear, very structured. It's not that like I am only left brain. That's again a myth, but largely I use all my left tendencies. So I'm very structured, very organized. And then from the right side, I'm very creative. I'm very empathetic, emotional, kind, and care. Now, if these two initially opposites attract, so they will get into the marriage. But now the same thing will be a problem because I will get annoyed if the person is not putting the towel in the right place, because I'm a left brain. I need the towel to be right where it's supposed to be. But the person who is right brain won't really matter. The same things, what was attractive now becomes a point of contention, now becomes a point that, oh, divorce is the next sort of the thing on the card. But what if I learn to celebrate these differences? What if I'm able to now welcome and use that critical analysis that the particular X person has from the left brain to allow me to understand that better? I think the teams, you talk about parenting, you talk about corporate world, everything can become absolutely a nice place to work, nice place to be, and progressive just by embracing this universal truths that let's celebrate.
Beautiful. Once again, let's celebrate the diversity and the differences to have a beautiful, loving world. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Shweta, you have done so much in your life. You've starting from the 13 gold medals to the diverse certifications and professional qualifications you have. You've authored a couple of books and a few research papers. You've started the Limitless Brain Lab, and you also have the Spy Brain Lab. What's next? What can we expect from you? What's going to be the next step in your professional career?
Beautiful. That's go all from my green book, all from my green journal. So I think I want to reach out to at least 20 to 25 million people where they are feeling pained. There is this feeling of helplessness or lack of support, both from the components of bridging science and spirituality, from the neuroparenting, because I strongly feel that whatever we invest in this generation will pay back to the multiple generations. So I'm very passionate about raising the right kids, the way you get to their brains, way you make them understand their potentials. That's why I'm very, very passionate about My Limitless Brain, because it's a startup for 12 to 18-year-olds. And then the most important component of it is carrying these ancient wisdom and continuing this research. So I always talk to people that please help us in various ways, because we want these traditions to survive, to live. It need not be just Indian, but look at some Buddhist traditions, some Tibetan traditions, some Chinese traditions, healing traditions, evolutionary traditions, etc. Let's start to work them and we preserve this for the future generations. So I think my coming
Mhm.
years is going to be building this limitless brain library, inviting all the top performers, top leaders, building this bridging science and spirituality, getting more research, publishing a lot of stuff for that, which is very simple also, as you rightly mentioned in the initial thing. I want to get to the grassroots of it, and then reaching at least 20 to 25 million people where the pain is resolved. So they get their back their health, their mental wellness, and their happiness.
Beautiful, beautiful. Really, I mean, my heartfelt wishes to your initiatives, and really looking forward to this beautiful marriage between science and spirituality and how it can help humanity. Sweta, we really have to end here, unfortunately, but I would like to end it with a rapid fire round. Are
Sure.
you ready?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. What can an aspiring woman leader do differently to become really successful in her entrepreneurship?
Self love. Start by loving the self. Everything else will fall in place.
Can you share three books that has really helped you over the years?
Robin Sharma is one of my favorite authors. So the 5 a.m.
Hmm.
Club, the When I Die, Who Will Cry? That's one of my favorite books. The other book, which has been always very close to my heart, is the autobiography of the yogi from Swami Paramahansa. And then Swaro Yoga. That also has been one of my favorite books.
Okay. What's the key mentorship lesson that you have learned as a woman in medicine?
I think as a women leader in certain roles where medicine was involved, I understood the entire perception of way how to look at the same problem can be very varied. So embracing the perspectives and then not sticking on to your own perspective as the right is what I have learned all through the career, and that's very important. So getting little open, being little open, giving that window of understanding of others, and then re-examining what your perspective is. That's what I've learned.
What are the three things that you're grateful for in life?
That's such a beautiful question. I'm actually grateful that I'm alive. I'm talking to you. I'm right now. My hands and legs are functioning. So I think the human life I'm extremely grateful for. I'm extremely grateful for my spiritual teacher. Without, so I got a second birth, I should say. My first mother also I'm grateful because she gave me the birth. I'm here because of that. But then the second mother, which is my spiritual mentor, because of which I could do a lot of things, and the life itself. These are the three grateful points for me.
What is the one core message that you can share with us today, but something that you received from your spiritual mentor or any other guru that you look up to that's been your guiding light?
So I think what we discussed is, again, I'm going to repeat it because this is so important, that anybody has to first of all find the calling, get that calling,
Mm.
get to do the creative, meaningful, and the noble work. And let the self housekeeping continue. That housekeeping has to be on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, because the brain is so plastic. You definitely will reach where you want it to be. The driving seat is all with you. The brain's driving seat is not automatic, it's within you. It's you.
Beautiful. That's a very, very positive way to end our conversation. Thank you so much, Shweta, for sharing all this lovely wisdom with us today. I hope people who listen to this become movers.
Absolutely. My
That's
prayers.
the ultimate goal of this podcast.
Absolutely. My prayers to one and all. And let's all live happily, healthily, and by loving each other.
Thank you, Shweta. That was wonderful. Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us today on the Impressive Empress podcast. I hope this conversation with Dr. Sweta Adatia has left you feeling inspired to embrace your own personal journey of empowerment and leadership. Whether you're navigating self doubt, embracing vulnerability, or stepping into your full potential as a woman, remember that you have the power to create a meaningful change. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a review or share with someone who might need this conversation or an inspiration today. As always, do subscribe and stay connected with us on social media, where we continue to celebrate the strength, wisdom, and grace of women all around the world. Got a question that you want me to ask our next guest? Do write to me at Empress at Bhogya.online. That's EMPRESS at BHOGYA.online. Until the next time, keep embracing your inner Empress and living with purpose.